piece of junk.
So here we are. I'm in the old 300 bullnose. What do they call these? I don't know, early 80s Ford. And 300 4-speed. And I want to get this thing to be a driving vehicle, like a good daily driver vehicle. So it needs tires. The heater core shot, I think. I don't remember what's all wrong with it, so I got to get it started. And of course, the battery I had for it laying around is, it's not dead, but it's so weak that it did like a third of a rotation and then it was dead. So it's, we'll see here. Oh, we clearly don't have very good connections. All right, this thing's been sitting for a really long time. I shut the old 7.3 off because it's too noisy. Oh. Well, that's better. Will it idle though? I'm not gonna touch anything. Apparently not. Okay, so I remember now that this thing needed a carburetor. I remember that much. It won't idle. Not well, anyway. So, yeah, it won't idle at all. I have to keep it running. So it needs a carburetor for sure, and a heater core, and to pass any real inspection, it needs a windshield. And I'm not against putting a windshield in a $400 truck. I know that sounds contradictory, but if the truck is worth putting a windshield in, a windshield isn't the end of the world. It's just not worth, you know, doing a bunch of body work or a bunch of other crazy stuff on a junk truck if you're not going to restore it. I don't remember a lot about this truck, but just from driving it around a bit, I can see that the temp gauge works, the oil pressure gauge works, the speedometer works. I think the fuel gauge works. I don't know if it's charging or not though. So yeah, there's gonna be some going through this to see what it takes to put it on the road, but first things first. I mean, gotta drive it around, warm it up, and see if everything's good. Before I parked it, I changed the oil because the oil had water in it, because it was sitting when I got it with the hood off. The hood was in the box. So yeah, take that as you will, I suppose. It's got clean oil in it. See, this is why I love manual transmissions, because this thing needs a carburetor, which is whatever, but if you stall it and the battery's dead, you can always just drop start it. Oh, it's stalled. Oh, there we go. Let's do that again. Oh, look. Oh, away we go. Love it. So I bought these 31-inch rims and tires for $400 on Kijiji. I love Kijiji so much. 515.5. The bolt size is from a Jeep or something, some older Jeep. So the bolt pattern matches, but they're not hub centered, which we're just gonna look the other way on. And as I begin to do my inspection, I'm finding little problems. Oh, you can't see that well, but I'll show you from here. Now you can see. So this thing needs some front end components, but look at those rims. Good God. Oh, I'm all winded from changing tires. I still got one left to do. You have to lift these things really high with a jackall to swap out a tire, but that's okay. It's good for it. I love the dump jackall. You have to manually run this top pin because whatever mechanism doesn't work anymore, but other than that, it works real good. Those 31s are going to look real sharp. I could run the tires that are on it, but they're a little weather checked and they're all different sizes. And I want this thing to be on the road, and I want it to be not a death trap. So I've got the truck in the shop now, and I've dieseled all these things so that the hood latch works properly and the hood release works properly. And then I pulled this front wheel, and you can see it's all wet. That's because I had it on the tire machine looking for why it was leaking. So I put this tire on, and within a day it had gone down quite a bit. So I knew one of these tires leaked. And this is the one that was flat in the shed when I went to grab it. I was looking for a nail, so I ended up wetting the whole tire down, but ended up leaking at the bead. So I popped the bead, I cleaned everything up, I rebeaded it, it's not leaking, on it goes. But yesterday, when we found out that the tie rod was no good, let's see if I can, anyway, there's tension on it from the jack, probably. I found that this wheel was really hard to turn. So I didn't think the brakes were dragging, because there's no signs of brakes dragging on this. But I suspected that that's the problem when you get into old trucks, right? You get into an old truck that you get a deal on, you're going to deal with things like misadjusted components. So someone had tightened this bearing to the point where you couldn't turn this with your hand, and you should be able to turn that with your finger. And all it was that someone didn't know what they were doing. Now, would it have failed catastrophically? Probably not. It would ruin your fuel, it would hurt your fuel mileage, and it would prematurely wear out your bearings. But it wasn't so tight that it was dangerous. It was just too tight. So now I have to go through the other side and do the same thing just to make sure. It takes 2 seconds. And it's a good idea on an old truck when you're dealing with this to check the quality of the grease. See, the grease on this thing is very clean. And it's all there. So it's a good bet that this thing's in good shape. So we'll move on to the next one. So I drained the transmission, and there's beyond sparkles, there's a few chunks in there. Yeah, you can see them. That's not the best. It shifts through the gears well and drives okay, so I'm going to change the oil and ignore this until it becomes a bigger problem. But this is to be expected in a $400 truck. So here we are. I got the input bearing and the input gear out, and there's no metal filings. And there's no slop in the crown gear. So the differential's not wore out. I think the issue is the same as the wheel bearing. I think that someone replaced the seal or the bearings on the input or the pinion, and they set the clearance wrong, and they just put it together like that, because I can't see any reason. And they put weird oil, like it's got like 140 weight oil or something in it, which is not appropriate. So I'm guessing whoever put this together last just didn't do a very good job. So I don't think there's anything actually wrong. I'm going to take this apart, go through it, see what I have to do. If I have to get a new crush sleeve, I'll torque it to spec as whatever it is they want. And I'm going to have to Google search this, right? Or even YouTube, just like your average guy. I'm just going to look it up, see how to do it myself, see if I can't get that clearance better, and then put it back together. Shouldn't cost much. I can't imagine it'd cost more than 20 bucks. So I tore this all apart, and someone put a bunch of gaskets here, which they use to space things out. I get it. But with the gaskets removed, the clearance is good. It's not all sloppy. But upon further inspection, I did find, I don't remember which way it is. There it is. That's the spider gears. And not much I can do about that. So it's not catastrophic. There's no metal in it. It's just that those spiders are wore out. And what's probably going to have to happen is it's going to end up getting... it's going to get the old Lincoln locker with the welder, but you have to pull the carrier on a 9-inch to do that. So I'm not going to do that just yet. And while I was at it, the U-joints were not bad. They weren't wrecked or wore out, but I still took it apart on the wheel end anyway, on the end closest to the axle. Took the caps off, took them all apart, cleaned them, greased the U-joint and put it back together. So that should be good. It's coming along. All right, so we've moved on to the exhaust. So I went underneath the truck and cut out what's left of the exhaust system. This is it. Like, it comes off the engine, it goes under the cab straight, and then it ended up at this bottle. And right after the bottle, it went to this chunk of pipe. But it used to come out behind the back wheel, and as you can see, It's completely rotten. It's garbage. So let's throw that in the dumpster there. So all I did was I cut it and left enough length that I can use this chunk of 90 to connect to the existing piece and have it come out in front of the back wheel. On the passenger side, of course. And it's even got this wonky clamp connection that's kind of loose, which is good. It's going to give us a little bit of movement to do what we're doing. And then the tailpipe is going to be, and the tailpipe is going to be this. I might end up trimming it or whatever. We'll see how far it sticks out. But the muffler is going to be running the opposite direction, but it's not really much of a muffler anyway. So these bottles, the change in direction only takes out a little bit of the rasp, but that's how you save money on exhaust, because it's not rotten, this part. So it'll weld nice. The stuff that's still left under the truck will weld nice, and we'll have a functioning legal exhaust system. That's all that matters. And it will cost me $0, just like 20 cents in welding cable. See, as you can see, I flipped the factory exhaust is all good up to there. That's where the hanger is. And then I cut it, and then I welded on that chunk with the bottle on it. And as you can see, I drilled a hanger right in the one of the factory rubber hangers that was already on it. I managed to save the bolts, put it back together, and bolt it right to the bodywork. Now, normally you don't drill holes in the body, but this thing, it's got bigger problems. Anyway, now we've got a sassy custom exhaust system, and it's actually legal. So we're road testing this thing, and well, the windshield's still destroyed, but for having done a tie rod and just used a measuring tape, it actually drives pretty damn good. I thought it would be more off center, the steering wheel, but it's actually pretty nice. The gravel road's not a very good indicator though. Once I take it out on the highway, you know, I'll have to do more work before it goes on the highway, but it's got its new exhaust system. It's nice and quiet. It's still not what you'd call a performance machine. Oh yeah, feel that power. But it seems to run pretty good. And it's just getting better all the time with that U-joint and the rear end and everything having fresh oil in it, and yeah. Yeah, she's gonna be a sweet ride. I saved some money by not having to work on the exhaust. And for how much metal was in the transmission, it shifts really good, which is really disturbing. Oh yeah, it likes that. Oh, this is what dreams are made of. I'm very excited about this thing. Flawless. Now I just have to fix the carburetor because it has absolutely no idle circuit whatsoever. So I tore the carb apart today, and I put the carb all back together, and I didn't spend a single dollar on it. Just cleaned it. That's it. Simple as that. It just needed to be cleaned. It doesn't even leak or anything. What's not to love about these old girls? Just goes right back to idle. Flawless. So here we are. Speed run time.
I'm gonna have to speed test it now. Speed test.
I'm gonna start off at second, I think.
Hey, kid.
Oh, she's not a performer. Come on.
This is pathetic.
Oh, I don't know. I don't think 100's achievable. There's a slight incline. Oh no, we're gonna do 100. We're gonna do 100. It's just, it's gonna take way uphill now, so I'm gonna call that a victory. It is slowly working its way out of the field. Slowly. It'll come out. It just takes some time. See, I think I figured out why it was stuck. You see those? They're not spinning. Damn these two-wheel drives. Boy, does it run good though. Man, this thing runs good. So I've got the heater core out of this thing, and of course, because it's an old truck, it's relatively easy to do because it's on the engine bay side, so you don't have to tear the whole dash out of it. It's not a second-gen Dodge where the heater box is all distorted and warped. It's a really complicated one. It's got hot and outside air. That's it. But the heater core they sent me from Amazon was only 50 bucks. But it's significantly smaller than the factory one, which is completely rotten and leaking. So what I did was I cut some foam, the generic construction foam, and I used it as a spacer on the backside to hold this nice and steady. And the factory mounts now hold it tightly in place. Like, it could technically still have some potential air leaks, but really, who cares? Another problem was it was full of dead mice and leaves, which I cleaned out. So now the door works like leaps and bounds forward. The fan already worked, but there was a big gaping hole in the top of the airbox. I assume because of the way the hole was made, it looks like someone did it on purpose. Maybe because the heater core didn't work, they thought that having a giant hole in the airbox might pull air from the engine bay and blow it into the interior. That's hillbilly thinking right there, but it would not work very well. It might work if if your vehicle was idling and it was nice and hot outside when it was cold, but it definitely won't work when you're moving. There's too much wind under the hood. Anyway, I appreciate the effort. Oh yeah. I put some nice traction tape because I can't find my duct tape. And we're good to go. I'm going to put this thing back together and it's going to have heat again. I drove it last night to a friend's place and it was cold. And my wheel alignment was bad. I've already adjusted that. A common problem with doing wheel alignments yourself with a measuring tape is that when you set it down after doing the alignment, you can't just measure it. You have to roll it back and forth. And then it kind of finds its happy spot, because when you lift it up, the twin I-beam off kilters everything, and it's enough to destroy your measurements. So I had it towed in between 1/8 and 1/4 inch is what you want. And when I measured it this morning after driving it last night, it was off by almost 1 inch. So I fixed it now. I'll drive it again and see if it's better. Look at this shit. I managed to drill out the spark plug. And now I can test out this thing's water carrying capacity. We'll see if a 1/2 ton likes a whole tote of water. I picked the worst day to be out here. It's really dry and I was worried my trees were gonna die, so I decided I'm gonna come fill this jug. And it looks like there's a disgusting rainstorm coming, so this might be for nothing. Oh, I am absolutely frozen. I got sprayed with water in 70, 80 kilometer an hour wind. I'm just soaked because, of course, like every other time, my pipe blew out the top of the tank. But I am carrying 1,000 liters of water to go water trees and fill my rain barrels, because we haven't had any rain. And now we're about to get a bunch of rain. Yeah, I love this old girl truck already. I think I might have to replace the rear end, but everything else is good. Look at my shiny new windshield. That's what dreams are made of. I am a little cautious about carrying this much weight, not because I care about the truck, but because the rims are off of Willys. So the bolt pattern is the same, but they're not hub centered anymore. The hubs on a Willys are bigger. So I'm carrying all the weight on the wheel studs, which is not the best, but I'm not going to be driving this thing 1,000 miles. I'm going like a kilometer. So it's all part of testing the old truck out. And my Honda water pump that had a broken spark plug and I said was a write-off is 100% again. I mean, it still has no compression, but I mean, that's, you know, when you have no air filter, these things will happen. So this thing is officially on the road. Like, it is insured, registered, good to go. I've driven it to town a few times. I've driven it all over the place. It seems to run and drive really, really good. It's just flawless performance. It just starts right up. The charging system works. All the lights work. Everything's good. The rear end is the only concern. There's a little bit more slop than I'd like in the pinion bearings, so I think the carrier might be wore out. So I might end up changing the carrier, but I have a spare carrier. Don't mind me. Anyway, I've got a spare carrier, and I'm going to have to pull it out of a spare diff at some point. If I need to, I'll replace it. But other than that, it's actually in really good shape. And yeah, she's gonna be on the road for a bit here, unless it lets me down. But the total, all said and done, was $400 for the truck, $400 for the rims and tires, $400 for the windshield, almost to the dollar, and $55 for the heater core. So I'm into it for $1,250. Everything else is all source junk out of the yard. Oh wait, no, I take that back. I had to buy a tie rod for it, so I'm into it for $1,300. So $1,300 for a running, driving, street legal truck that you could put potentially a lot of mileage on. The tires have a lot of life in them. This thing, you know, you can still, with a little bit of know-how and a little bit of work, you can still put an old vehicle on the road for reasonably cheap. Let's see if I can do it with another one.